From the creators who brought you RuPaul's Drag Race and Million Dollar Listing, this is World of Wonders Wow Report. Things that make us go wow.
Hello everyone and welcome to this week's edition of the Wow Report, where we count down the top 10 things of the week that make us go wow. We have a very special guest this week who's been on more than once. I'll get to her in just a hot second, but first, actually, Lisa, you're kind of standing in this week for Tom Campbell, who's out on Mystery's top secret assignment. And then, of course, you have best-selling author James St. James.
Darling, it's good to see you both.
Good to see you, host of Night Fever, the fabulous podcast. James, we have a new season of Night Fever coming, I believe.
We do. July, we have season 4. Can you believe it? And then we have a special bonus episode with drag historian Lisa Max Goodman, who is going to start off the season at the last week of June. And it's going to be
Pride Month, a Pride Month special, right?
Pride Month bonus episode, yes.
I mean, all the episodes of these nightlife legends of the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, and beyond, I mean, most of them are gay, right? Anyway, but this is a very special gay episode that's dropping in June.
And it's interesting because we are talking about drag queens and drag kings of the 19th century who were very, in the Edwardian era, who were very, very famous. They were as famous as RuPaul, but they've sort of been lost in the dustbin of history. And so we're introducing audiences to a lot of old-timey drag superstars.
I love
that's fascinating.
Yeah, really interesting stuff. So be sure to be on our Instagram to see when it's come dropping.
I love Night Fever because it's a sort of ephemera. It's this history of ephemera. You know, the history of nightclubs and nightlife doesn't really get. Well, it is being documented now, I guess, and recorded now, but it's sort of been overlooked as a cultural force.
Yeah,
and of course, James St. James was at every single nightclub opening in the history of humanity.
I didn't go home for 12 years.
12,000 years. You didn't go home. The vampire James St. James. All right, we're going to count down the top 10 things of the week. We're going to start at number 10. Welcome back, please, Lisa Ferri, our person at the Trump trial.
Number 10.
Oh my God, there's been so much coverage of this trial, but you have excelled by bringing this sort of personal detail, this sort of sense of color. And so what was that final day of
that final stretch? Yes, we are so lucky to get this from you. I'm so excited to hear
what was it like?
It was really unexpected. And every time I've talked about it, I've said, oh, it wasn't what we expected. And that final day sort of lived up to the drama that you would want out of the final day. Like whoever's going to write the Hollywood screenplay, they have a lot of work has already been done because life took care of it. So we showed up that morning and we knew that there was going to be some sort of technical stuff. The jury had sent in a bunch of notes to the judge and said, hey, could you read back parts of the testimony? And could you read back parts of the jury instructions, which are really technical and boring. And so we were sort of like ready for an hour and a half or so of some sort of technical kind of boring stuff. But it turned out to be really interesting and at times very funny, especially the testimony that they wanted read back. It was testimony of like the tough lawyers asking people like David Pecker, the publisher of the National Enquirer, questions. And it was like 2 men, but you don't have those men there able to read the thing. So they had these 2 adorable female court reporters reading it and like sort of cosplaying as David Pecker and the tough lawyers. And they had really sweet New York accents and say that, you know, they just, you know, were sort of like mom energy. And so reading the transcript and trying to like do their very best. And so that was sort of funny and like a moment of levity. And, you know, a lot of it was very technical and we're not lawyers. And so we're like, what are we supposed to read into this? I don't know. And then as has been somewhat reported, but was a little bit fell through the cracks. One of the other things that they asked for at the very end after they finished reading these boring legal instructions and then this funny moment with the women reading the testimony, they're like, hey, could we have headphones? It felt a little bit like the game of Clue, like you're a little detective and you're trying to be like, well, what's that mean? And what's that mean? And when they said we want headphones, record scratch, like, say more. And what we realized that is that the jury had been sort of put away in this room to deliberate, and they'd been given a laptop, and the laptop was what's called like a dead laptop. So it has no access to the internet. They can't Google anything. That's really important, because that could be, if they Googled something inappropriate, that could be grounds for mistrial. And so what were they going to use the headphones for? Well, this laptop was just packed full of all of the evidence, and there was a lot. There were a couple of very key smoking gun type audio recordings, and these were like secret recordings that Michael Cohen had made of Donald Trump when Donald Trump didn't know he was recording him. And one of them in particular, in their closing arguments, the prosecution had said, hey, go back in that room, play this recording, listen to it as many times as you need to, and turn up the volume, because everything you need to know about why you should convict Donald Trump is on this recording. And then they asked for headphones. And so you're like, oh, they took that
so
in.
they can hear if it's been doctored, like if it's.
Yes. And so that was one of the things the defense had been like, oh, you can't trust that recording. They doctored it. And the prosecution was like, try me. Go listen to it. Listen to it a million times and turn up the volume. And so that's what they had asked for in the closing arguments. The defense had been like, they doctored that tape. And the prosecution was like, that tape is what you can use and lean on to convict him. And believe me, it wasn't doctored. Go listen to it. And then the next day they asked for headphones. So we're all like, wow, okay, that's interesting. If we're, in a Law and Order kind of way, like, interesting clue. But then the rest of the day was kind of dull. We were sort of just, as the press corps, just sitting there waiting, watching our watches and taking bets on when we might get a jury response back. And the night before had been a really long day, and we'd been there till almost 8, which was very, very late for us. At about 4:15, the judge comes back and calls us all into order. The jury's still deliberating. And he says, guys, I'm going to end court early today. Let's call it a day at 4:30. I'm going to go tell the jury. He leaves, and we're just all packing up our stuff, ready to go. Very excited to have an early day. And 4:20, 4:25, 4:30, no sign of the judge. And then we're all like, And at 4:36,
did you leave and go home without telling us?
I know. I was like,
can you imagine if Lisa, after all that, you missed it?
I know. Oh no. I know some press corps. I know some journalists who were there every day, and they were like, I don't need to be here today. Oh, we're ending early, and they want to kill themselves. So we're all like packing up our stuff, like being like, hey, let's get a beer. We're ending early. And at 4:36, he comes back. And Judge Mershon just has the most lovely temperament, and he's just like,
you love him. You have a crush on Judge.
I have a crush on him. I think he's very handsome.
I think he is. He is. Let me just tell you,
he's very daddy.
He's kind of great. So he comes back out, and in this very, like, not rattled in any way, he's like, so the jury says that they just need 30 more minutes and they have a verdict. And you could hear everyone go, oh, and everyone takes their laptops back out because we packed up. And you can hear everyone like firing up their laptops and firing up their phones and texting the office and being like, oh my God, oh my God.
So you hear that there's going to be a verdict. In your head, are you thinking this is good or this? What is your thought immediately?
My thought was, I did not ever believe there was going to be an acquittal, a full acquittal. I thought it was going to be.
You thought there was going to be a hung jury. Yes.
I thought there could be a hung jury or conviction or some hybrid. The fact that it came back so quickly, we really thought, the longer it goes on, the more likely it is that it's a hung jury. So it came back so quickly. We're like, oh, I think we're going to get a conviction, some conviction. I don't think anyone in that room thought it was going to be 34 counts.
I'll tell you just very quickly, so watching it, because I was racing home because when I heard there was a verdict, I was racing back to get it, and then I walk in and I hear 1 guilty, 2 guilty, and it just kept going and going and going. And I imagine being in that room, the air just is going out of the room.
Yes. So the jury comes in. The judge very calmly says to the foreperson, and remember, we haven't heard the jurors' voices since the beginning when they were chosen. And the foreperson has an Irish brogue. He's a young man and he's Irish. And the judge says, have you reached a conclusion? Yes, we have. Have you reached a verdict? Yes, we have. And then they go through very methodically. On count 1, what do you find? Guilty. And just there, everyone's like, oh, whoa. And you can hear everyone like tapping on their typewriter on their laptops. Count 2, guilty. And you're like, and if it's possible for more air to have been taken out of the room, more air was taken out of the room. And then I think we all just thought maybe it would be 1 or 2 guilties, but not 34. And then it went very quickly because you could feel that the woman who was reading this off, count 3, guilty. And they just picked up speed, like the 2 of them. It was like this call and response. Count 4, guilty, count 5. And we almost couldn't keep up typing. And I was seated between, on my right, someone who works for a progressive news outlet, and on my left, someone who works for Fox. And I was seated behind a couple of people who are, I will just say, notable conservatives. And they sort of, one turned around to look at the other. And as it went on, and it just became clear, like, okay, wait, this might be all 34. The Fox correspondent to my left just sort of leaned forward and sort of put her head in her hands. I mean, it was surreal, is what I would say. And then once they go through all 34 counts, 34 guilties, they go through each juror and they say, so you have found this defendant guilty on 34 counts. Juror number 2, do you agree? And so yes. Juror number 3, do you agree? Juror number 4. And they went through each juror, to make sure that there was no one who disagreed but didn't feel comfortable saying that. And then Judge Mershon addressed the jury in this beautiful way. He said, I want to thank you. You've been incredible. But also, every single day that before I've dismissed you, I've given you admonishments, and I've said, don't Google this case. Don't talk to your partners. Don't talk to your friends. Don't try to research this at a court. Don't think about it. Today, I'm not giving you that admonishment. It is now in your hands if you want to go and talk about this. And if you don't need to. It is your choice, which was big because he would, in fact, spend a significant amount of time each day being like, don't do it. Don't talk about it. That will derail this whole thing. And interestingly enough, what we know since then, since this was Thursday, is that none of the jurors thus far have come forward.
I have a feeling that it's in their best interest, knowing how people get doxxed and everything. Yeah.
Yeah. And there has been some public facing reporting saying that someone close to one of the jurors has said that is their concern. Getting them to and from the court was very carefully, thoughtfully orchestrated. They would meet at a undisclosed location off-site, not near the court, get into a van that with tinted windows, be brought in through an entrance. So they went to such lengths to protect their anonymity and keep them safe. So it is their choice, but they have so far chosen not to come out. So then they file out, and they had to file out right past Donald Trump.
Yeah.
And that was incredibly awkward. The prosecutors who just won this big case were very, very careful. There was no like pumping their fists in the air, doing an end zone dance. There was none of that. They were very like somber about it. The jurors walked by and they don't seem to have looked at him. It was awkward and cringy. And in fact, there's reporting that Trump is complaining that none of the jurors smiled at him or looked at him.
What won't he complain about?
And why did we even report it? It's like I'd have given him a looks could kill death stare.
Yeah. But so it was just, and then the judge said, and this was so great. And it just, again, I've described him as like a character out of the Bible or something, out of like something I learned from Catholic school. He said to these jurors whose lives have been uprooted for 6 weeks, he said, before you go, I want to meet with you in my chambers. And I just want to get some feedback. I want to hear what it was like being a juror on this case. And could you give us some tips about how we could improve the experience? Isn't that the best?
Yeah.
He's just the sweetest. And you could really, the whole time, I've said this before, feel this like connection. I've been told
I have heard more about Judge Marchand than you.
I wanted to say,
trial.
I wanted to say, before we close out this segment, though, watching the various channels as it was being read, and I want to say that MSNBC, watching Rachel Maddow as they were reading it, and she was stone-faced, and you could see it was everything in her power not to give an expression. And it was the same over on CNN when Jake Tapper was reading them out. But then you go over to Fox and you just saw, like you said, about this and people screaming and shouting and everything. But watching Rachel was just a master class in how to do it and not piss anyone off, or not, because she was that she was going through a million emotions, but she was a professional, by God, and she was not going to. It was fascinating to see everybody.
You might remember that in 2016, after Donald Trump won, there was a lot of reporting. I have no idea if it was accurate or not, about different journalists who had emotional reactions to it, and that was a lot of discussion in newsrooms after that. And I think it just goes back to the whole thing that you learn in journalism school. Like, we are not part of the story. We're reporting on the story. And so whatever you may feel, it's a distraction if you bring that to the thing. But it was one of those moments that will go down in history, right? As the moment we're living in such a fractured media environment where, like, everyone's getting most of their news off the phone, or not necessarily linear TV. And it was one of those things where you will remember, where were you when that verdict came down? And so, and then afterwards, outside the court, what was interesting was it was really circus-like, but it wasn't protests, which is kind of what the Trump world had promised, that there would be like riots in the street. No, it was high interest. There were helicopters. It was chaotic. They were hustling us out of the court. There were helicopters overhead. But, if you've ever lived in New York, it was like one of those moments where you're like, oh my God, God bless New York. Like, they know how to do chaos, but they did it well. Like, it was just controlled chaos, but there weren't protests. It was people experiencing history together. It was kind of like a pinch me moment to be there. You'll never forget it.
I was watching it, I think, on ABC, and the graphics, they had like boxes for every and they couldn't keep up. They couldn't keep up. And it was like, ding, ding, ding. And so they were reading out it was.
And they were on 2, and the graphics were on 5, and they weren't quite matching up. I was watching that too.
Because no one expected them to come out that rapid fire. They
weren't prepared.
You're dealing with and you're trying to input and MSNBC and NBC's data input system was just very, very good and very, very fast. But
we're going to move on. But you had a pair of opera glasses. You were in the overflow room. You studied Trump, and I've watched every single appearance you've made, because you've become something of a celebrity. And you were talking about the musculature on Trump's back, and I'm like, Lisa, what? Like, talking about his heft and his. I just want you to clarify this.
So I will say 2 things. One is, now that it's over, and I'm like packing up my, go kit. When you're a journalist, you have like a go kit of like all the things that you need, and in my go kit is like, granola bars and binoculars, bird watching binoculars, so that you could really like see what was going on his face. Was he sleeping? Was he closing his eyes? What was happening with the lawyers? What was happening with the judge? So yes, I need to repurpose those opera glasses, because I'm not a bird watcher. But what I was saying is that I was reflecting on the experience, and when I was in the court with Trump, not in the overflow room, and we've mentioned this, he's spoken very glowingly about mobsters and, godfathers, and how they comported themselves when they were in court. And that part of it is theater, right? Like, you don't want to portray any weakness, you portray strength. And that's part of the strategy as much as anything your lawyers are saying. And he would stride into court, and he would scan the room, and he would see, oh my gosh,
another cup of coffee.
No, it's not. Hold.
I wonder what it is.
Oh my God, I'm getting phone calls. Do you see who that is?
Michael Cohen.
Oh, that's fascinating.
Hi, can I call you right back? Okay, bye.
I am so impressed that we have booed that you
we're not cutting that bit out, Lisa. That's him. Let's move on to number 9. We'll have more from Lisa later in the show, and we'll post the full pieces on our YouTube channel, WOWPresents. James, what do you got at number 9?
Number 9.
I am furious about Furiosa. I went to go see it at the theater the other day on opening night, and it's spectacular. It's just absolutely, it's fantastic.
But it's a bit of a box office.
Well, that's what I'm furious about, because it's a prequel to Fury Road, and Fury Road is it is the best action movie of all time. I truly believe that in my heart of hearts.
Right.
I think it is one of the best movies of the 21st century. And this is a prequel to it that lives up to the hype. It is nonstop, heart racing, on your feet, applauding and jumping up and down. It's that good. Chris Hemsworth is hysterical. He is so good. Anya Taylor-Joy is a worthy successor to Charlize Theron. But what happened after 24 hours, they released the box office numbers, and the box office numbers were not up to what the studios actually
tracking. Yeah.
It was a disappointment. And what happens then, like what happened with The Fall Guy, is it becomes this sort of self-perpetuating myth.
They abandon the budget, the promo budget, right?
Yes. And then all of a sudden everyone starts saying, well, it wasn't that good. And then the word of mouth goes south. And then the numbers keep plummeting and plummeting and plummeting as everyone is talking shit about it. And it just, like I said, it's this self-perpetuating thing where if they hadn't released the numbers and if they hadn't said it's a bomb, then it wouldn't have been a bomb. And if it would have stayed in the theaters a little bit longer, if it would have had a chance to build an audience by word of mouth.
Susan Seidelman talks about this very thing in her biography, actually, with Making Mr. Right, meeting Mr. Right. I mean, it's been something that's been going on for many years, right?
Yeah, definitely. In the olden days, and when I was growing up, you had a summer movie would come out in June, and in August it would still be playing, and it would do blockbuster numbers. But because the day after it's declared a bomb, there is out of the theaters, and it doesn't have a chance to build an audience. And I'm just saying that I really enjoyed it. And if you get a chance to go see it in the theater, go do it, because it is a lot of fun. Like I said, it's one action sequence that keeps building and building and building. And about 3/4 of the way through, there is a scene, and if you've seen the movie, you know what I'm talking about, where all of a sudden they're in parachutes and they're shooting flaming arrows as they're racing through the desert. And people just kept screaming in the audience as it kept building and building and building. And you can't believe where it's building to. It's just so bonkers and bananas. See it in the theater, but don't see it in IMAX, because I saw it in IMAX and the sound is chair shaking, vibrational. It's just from start to finish. It's just, and so by the end, that's all you're hearing is just like motorcycles going.
When I went to see Dune, I emerged like hard of hearing. I've been pounded into sort of.
That's exactly what this is too. This is the same thing where bring earplugs a little bit. Yeah.
Furiosa in theaters now. Number 8. June the 4th, we premiered House on Fire, our new show that follows the lives of inside the house of Miyake Mugler. They juggle. It's really good. We actually didn't produce it. We acquired it for WOWPresents Plus, and it's all set in the New York ballroom scene. And I don't know if you know, but Legendary is not really available at the moment. So if you love Legendary, I think you will love this. That's House on Fire on WOWPresents Plus. Then I know, humble brag, but Canada's Drag Race was nominated for 7 Canadian Screen Awards, and it won every single one. Best editing, best host, best costume, best cast, best show. I mean, it was like, oh my goodness.
That's fantastic. Congratulations, everyone.
Well, exactly. An amazing team. And very excited that today we also announced a new format. It is called SLAYcation, that is launching in Canada. The cast is Lux Noir London, Candy Muse, Boa, Carrie Colby, Lawrence Cheney, and Jada Hudson, all in a log cabin in a sort of winter wonderland of in the northern wilds of Canada for 1 week. And every day of the show is a different day, it's a different adventure, and it's a really fun show. SLAYcation. So that will be coming to WOWPresents Plus, as will Drag Race Mexico Season 2.
Oh, good.
And
people love Drag Race. They love Drag Race Canada, but Mexico, people go bonkers.
It's really good. And when we announced that it was coming, a lot of people at Wonder got flooded with requests to move the drop time because they said it wasn't convenient for viewing parties. And so you spoke, we listened, we've moved the time to 8 p.m. Central CST, which is Mexico City time or Mexico Central time, which is different from American Central time. So 7 p.m. Pacific time is now when Drag Race Mexico season 2 will launch June the 20th. So you really have to go sign up to WOWPresentsPlus.com because there's a lot going on. In addition, of course, to Painting with Raven, which is a spin-off from Painted with Raven that is currently playing. Drag Me to the Movies from the makers of
Well, I think that 7 p.m. Pacific time is great for happy hours, and 10 p.m. on the East Coast is perfect for just when you get to the club, when you get to the bar. I mean, it's perfect for bar watching, which is what I love doing with Drag Race.
I mean, ideally, we really want people to watch it on Wow Presents Plus, but we also recognize that viewing parties are a thing and that it's a feel-good thing, and that okay, we'll move it. That's what we'll do. We're going to take a break. I'm going to do a little bit of a selfish plug. Simon Doonan's book, Drag, which is kind of the history of all drag, he very nicely reached out to me and asked me to write a preface for the paperback version. So I did. And now I'm doing a chat with him at Barnes & Noble June 24th.
I was all excited when I saw this, and I thought, well, I'm going to go, but it's in New York at the Union Square Barnes & Noble. Am I right?
That is correct. He
just toddled off somewhere. Yes.
Drag.
And are we going to have Simon on the show? Will he come in?
Yeah, we're going to bring him on that week.
Good. Okay.
The week before June 24th. It's about 6 p.m. You can get your tickets. Simon's donating all his proceeds. I think it's going to be good. That's at Barnes & Noble Union Square. Let's take a break. And when we come back, we'll continue counting down the top 10 things of the week that made us go wow.
You're listening to World of Wonders Wow Report. Things that make us go wow.
Welcome back to the Wow Report. I'm Fenton here with James. It's just too lonely old.
Ping pong back and forth between you and I. TikTok. Seesaw. So number 7.
Number 7.
This week on HuffPo, there was an article that caught my attention talking about how school districts in red states are targeting LGBTQ students by enforcing antiquated dress codes, where boys must wear pants and girls must wear skirts of a certain length, though, and no midriff, that type of thing. But what happens is that for many non-binary drag trans students, for prom and for graduation ceremonies and things like that, they cannot dress in accordance to their gender. So and for the last 15 years, it has seemed like the world has become a better place because you're always reading these stories of drag queen prom queens and the trans prom queens, and it seemed like the kids, the Gen Zers and the millennials were better people than the rest of us, and that they were accepting of their LGBTQ schoolmates. Now, because so many judges in these red states have been promoted into places of power, they're right-wing judges, they are targeting students. It's a shame. It's a scary thing that we seem to be backsliding, and you keep hearing these stories where the legislation is introduced, and then we fight back, and it just seems like it's a constant struggle. But this is a new struggle that I think people should be aware of.
Oh my gosh, I mean, that's such a depressing thing to hear of. Especially during this month, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
What you are number 7, James, but you're also number 6.
Well, I love it. So much to talk about. I'm a fount of knowledge this week that I want to share with everybody.
Number 6.
I know this happened about 2 weeks ago, but I didn't want to let it pass without us talking about it. I wanted to say rest in peace, Johnny Wactor, the actor from General Hospital who was murdered about 2 weeks ago. He had a bartending shift. He's not on the show anymore. And so he was bartending at a party downtown. He went to go get his car, and there were thieves trying to steal the catalytic converter. And he said something, and they turned him, and they pulled the gun, and they shot him. A hero to the end. He blocked himself from the girl that he was with, so she didn't get shot. He took the full brunt of it and was killed. He was so good as Brando Corbin on General Hospital. He was just adorable. He was on it for about 3 years, I think, and he was like a hunky leading man with a heart of gold. General Hospital has lost so many people. We've talked about this on the show. Jacqueline Zeman, Sonia Eddy, Tyler Christopher, and Billy Miller have all died within the past 18 months from the show. And now we have Johnny Wactor. So they have this cast just... It's very sad because he was a young man. He was a good man, and he was a great actor. And it just breaks my heart.
Rest in perfection.
Yeah.
Oh gosh, I mean, what is happening to the show?
I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. No, what do you got? Do you have something positive?
Number 5.
Number 5.
2 weeks ago, there was an attempted coup in the Congo. And I've always been fascinated by the Congo. Heart of Darkness is one of my favorite books. And I've always actually had a secret hankering to go on that journey up the Congo.
Sure, yeah.
Haven't done it, probably won't. But so anytime the Congo's in the news, I'm like, oh, what's going on in the news? Ebola broke out there once, and it's a very conflicted zone. So there was a coup. And in a way, you might think, oh, well, what's the big deal about that? What happened was like something like 20 people stormed the presidential palace and the home of the economics minister in 2 separate neighborhoods in Kinshasa. And there was sort of gunfire, like sort of 4:30 in the morning, and the coup failed. But what makes this story so extraordinary is the coup was led by this guy called Christian Malanga, who's an American.
Huh.
He's a car salesman from Utah.
What?
Yes. And his son, Marcel Malanga, who's 21 and frankly very hot looking, was with him.
An important part of this story. Yes.
Yes. And his friend Taylor Thompson and a 22-year-old who apparently worked for FedEx. And they apparently were there on the pretense of a family vacation or building wells, providing fresh water.
Well, but did they have any connection to either the political party there or the royal family or whoever was couped?
Apparently, Christian Malanga, who was actually killed, one of the actual casualties in this attempted coup, I believe he was an evangelist and a committed Trump supporter. And I'm like, isn't there enough Trump informed stuff going on here without
Utah? Why did you have to go to the Congo?
In what frame of mind did you think 20 people can just take over a country? I just thought it was completely bonkers.
It's funny that I haven't seen this on any news channel. I haven't seen it on social media. I'm glad you pointed it out because now I'm going to start looking,
Marcel, the son, his dad was killed in the shootout, but Marcel survived. Christian and another guy were fished out of the Congo River by the Republican Guard, and are under arrest. And I think the UK authorities, the Canadians, and the US are all involved in trying to sort of make sure that this sort of ragtag army of right-wing evangelical Christian lunatics are protected. I mean, the whole thing is just extraordinary. I saw this meme recently, which I actually think just actually does feel slightly appropriate in the circumstance. The news used to tell you that something had happened, and then you had to decide what you thought about it. Now the news tells you how to think about something, and you have to decide if it even happened. I am finding the news and what I'm getting from increasingly it's just not unbelievable, but stretching credulity, I guess. Is this an AI story? Is this something that
you just don't know anymore. You have to really look through a story to get clues as to whether it's real or not, I guess.
Exactly. So we'll do more deep diving on the Congo and have more on this 21st century Heart of Darkness story in coming weeks, I hope.
Annie Flanders, our great friend Annie Flanders from Details Magazine, was back in the 1970s, I believe, was a guest of Emperor Haile Selassie in Ethiopia. and she was staying at the castle with him when there was the great Ethiopian uprising, and they came and stormed the castle, and Annie and Haile Selassie had to escape through tunnels with torches, going through these tunnels to try and escape the angry mob that was coming to kill them. It's a fascinating story, and just one of those you just talk about African coup, like that.
Was it him or Mabuto who built a palace in the middle of the jungle and also built a landing strip big enough for Concord to land, and it did land there?
I believe that sounds like Haile Selassie, because he was a big larger than life figure.
There you go. Just crazy. All right, we're going to take one more break, and when we come back, continue our counting down the top 10 things of the week that made us go wow.
You're listening to World of Wonders Wow Report. Things that make us go wow.
Welcome back to the Wow Report. I'm Fenton. Tom is out on assignment this week, and so it's just me and James. T for 2. We're counting down the top 10 things of the week that made us go wow. We've reached number 4. James.
Number 4.
I watched The Idea of You on Prime, I think it was. And this is one of those movies that has gotten a lot of crap. People hate it online. It's gotten a lot of hate online. It stars Anne Hathaway and Nicholas Galitzine. And Nicholas Galitzine plays a Harry Styles type boy bander who ends up having an affair with a 40-something-year-old woman. It was based on a fan fiction about Harry Styles. And I think Harry Styles ended up trying to sue the production because Nicholas Galitzine is doing a Harry Styles impersonation. And in fact, he does Harry Styles' dance. And I think Harry was furious about that. This is just sort of the backstory of what I've been hearing. But I went into it wanting to hate it, and I ended up loving every second of it. It is a Lifetime movie. It is corny as all get out. She takes her daughter to a concert, to this boy band concert, and they have a meet cute backstage where they meet, and she stumbles into his trailer, and she thinks it's the ladies' bathroom, and so she kicks him out of the bathroom and his own bathroom. It's just this, it's adorable. And then they start this love affair. Her daughter is horrified. Her ex-husband is horrified. The fans are horrified. Everybody is calling her the new Yoko Ono. She's breaking up the band. The band is irritated with her. The band hates her. Blah, 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 blah. But it is a wonderful way to while away a Sunday afternoon. Anne Hathaway, who I was never that big of a fan of, she looks gorgeous. This is the best she's ever looked. She's just fantastic. And Nicholas Galitzine, I had never seen anything that he's done.
You haven't seen the Red Hot and...
I haven't watched that. But I'm going to go back and watch all of it because he's absolutely adorable. I think he's just great. He just got the role of He-Man, and he's going to play He-Man. Go into it with an open mind is what I'm saying.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that's streaming on Prime, right?
Yes, on Prime.
Okay, great.
Number 3.
Pat Sajak is leaving Wheel of Fortune. I think today, Friday, is his last show.
Well, can I just say good riddance to bad rubbish? Because he is a terrible Trump supporter. He's always posting pictures with Marjorie Taylor Greene and him. He's a crazy Trumpian.
Okay. I had no idea.
Get out. Go on. Move on to the next person. Ryan.
Okay. Ryan Seacrest is to be introduced, which I suppose is so inevitable in the sense they look exactly the same. I'm sure they have different beliefs, maybe then.
Vanna is staying on, isn't she? And did she get the bump in salary that she wanted? I don't remember this story. Do you remember?
No.
It was something that she wasn't getting paid the same as Pat, I think, and it was a source of irritation. And she said she would stay on if she got the bump in salary. I don't know if I'm making that up or not, but I hope because I love me some Vanna White. I do. I think. But it is probably the best job in the history of television where you just get to dress up in gowns and turn letters. I just think it's just. I wish I could have a Vanna White job.
Right, exactly. I mean, all about Eve. The job.
But she's beautiful and she's fabulous. So I would like her to stay on.
I mean, I have to admit, I do watch Wheel of Fortune. It's on, and it's,
Well, because I do Jeopardy every single night. But then I do find myself staying on to watch Wheel of Fortune. But I'm a Jeopardy person more than Wheel of Fortune.
Yes, Jeopardy too. Yeah, because
how do you get? Are you 100%? What are you?
Oh no, I'm very erratic. Like there'll be ones where I get them all, but then a category and I won't get any at all.
Yeah. Well, if it has anything to do with like the periodic table, I'm probably not going to get it. If it's sports, I'm not going to get it. But when it's literature or movies, I can do it.
Right. So sometimes the question gives you the answer. Do you know what I mean? That thing. All right, let's move on. Number 2.
Number 2.
I think I want to say number poo. Because
no, is this what you sent me? I can't believe it.
They say you can't polish a turd, but in fact you can.
Oh, no.
This is a story of a fossilized turd. It is actually officially known as the Lloyd's Bank coprolite. I mean, this is an example of what social media is throwing my way lately.
Well, wait a minute, because this is a Jeopardy question right here. Oh. What is a coprolite? Is that a turd? Is that what it would?
A coprolite is, I believe, a piece of fossilized poo.
Damn.
And there's actually paleoscatologists. That's a real thing. In fact, Dr. Andrew Jones said of this coprolite, he said, "This is the most exciting piece of excrement I have ever seen."
Well, it wasn't in my bathroom the other day.
Well, let me tell you, this is 8 inches long, 2 inches wide, and was deposited by a Viking in the 9th century AD.
But he was a sick Viking, is what
He had all sorts of things going on, but
did he die from this 8-inch poo? Was that what killed him?
Doesn't relate. No, I don't think it killed him. I think he left his contribution and moved on.
Now, mentioned in another lifetime, would you be a paleoscatologist?
I could be. I mean, look, my job in TV, I have no training for anything. So
dealing with drag queens all day long, it feels like it being a paleoscatologist.
Maybe I could go back to school and learn a useful trade like paleoscatology. The other thing I can tell you is that it's in a museum in York, and once they were picking it up and they dropped it. And it broke into 3 pieces. I don't know if it's been restored or not, but
the picture that you sent me, it does look like a tree branch. It has that. Right. That's what I thought it was for a second until I read on with horror.
I always thought, in terms of fossilization, it took longer than a few thousand years, though. I mean, 9th century AD, that's not that old, actually, is it? That's like only 900 years. So, no, 1200, yeah. Because we're in the 21st century. Right. Okay. Yeah. But I don't know how it must have rapidly.
Well, especially if it takes a diamond, it takes a piece of coal 10 billion years to become a diamond. And so suddenly we have a piece of poo that.
So exactly. So maybe it's AI fakery. Maybe it's, maybe it's one of those,
You've been targeted by AI because they know of your love of scatology.
Apparently, it's worth $39,000. I don't know. How do you evaluate?
How do you come up with that?
We're going to take one more break. Our new Netflix reality series, Owning Manhattan, looks at the glamorous, adrenaline-filled universe of high-stakes real estate in New York City. World-famous broker and CEO Ryan Serhant stops at nothing to build his brokerage and goes after the most exclusive luxury listings in the city. Now, Ryan, of course, formerly of $1 Million Listings New York, is now on this Netflix show.
And also from Another World. Wasn't he a soap star beforehand? I remember him on that. Yes, handsome Ryan.
Gorgeous.
A killer. Yes. Killer instincts. He's fascinating.
Yes. We once had him on the WOW Report, and I think he was just profoundly embarrassed to be here and sort of thought, what am I doing with these idiots? Because he's so super smart. And I think he was also a hand model. And
I believe so, yes. I remember I interviewed him once, and I started out by saying, "Hello, handsome." And he said, "Oh, it's going to be one of those interviews, isn't it?"
I love that. All right, we're going to take one more break. And when we return, reveal the number one thing this week that made us go wow. And welcome back our special guest, Lisa Ferri.
Who I think if she listens to the show would be mortified that she's on as well.
Right.
You're listening to World of Wonders Wow Report. Things that make us go wow.
And welcome back to Wow Report. I'm Fenton here with James. And Tom is out this week, but we have a very special guest, Lisa, celebrity journalist reporter from the Trump trial, of course. And we've been counting down the top 10 and we've reached number 1. James, what is number 1? Because we definitely want Lisa to weigh in on this, right?
Number 1.
I want to talk about the Hunter Biden trial. First of all, I've got to put it out there that I want Hunter Biden to run for president. I think he is hot. I'm in love with him. I would party naked with him any day of the week, okay? But the way the mainstream media, and I'm talking about CNN, MSNBC, ABC News, and NBC News, even Fox, have been handling this, they are giving it the same gravitas as the Trump trial. They are both sidesing it, and it's wall-to-wall 24-hour coverage that doesn't need to be happening here, because the Trump trial history, this is he's not a politician. It's a trumped up, trumped up gun charges. It just is. And I don't quite understand whether there is this need for the media now to have wall-to-wall coverage of trial because everyone wants trials, or whether it's we got a Republican and now we're going to go after a Democrat.
I think it's a tale of two trials. What do you think, Lisa?
Yeah, what's going on?
I think if we were talking about 2016, when I think both siderisms was a real problem and it had not yet been examined by newsrooms, I think then that would be the whole answer or most of the answer. I think this time around it's more complicated. I think if you're covering it with nuance, you're covering the Hunter Biden trial for the enormity of, you have the first lady in there, and this says volumes about the first family. Not necessarily bad. This is a family that they have addiction in their family, and so many American families have that. And so the taking a closer look at that, there is something worthwhile. There is something brave about his writing about it and his being open about it. Right. And if they cover it, I don't disagree that it can, if not handled properly, appear like it's equating the Trump trial to this trial, right? But if you cover the Hunter case properly, it's an examination of a family with addiction issues, which is important. It's an examination of this family, which is important. And you can make the case that the fact that Joe Biden, the President Biden, has not used his powers to say DOJ, Justice Department, stand down, is a statement about his character, his values, and the rule of law in America. So if you tell the story of Hunter with all of those important components, then it's about how you tell the story. But I agree, if you don't handle it properly, it feels like you're equating the two and they're not the same. Trey Gowdy, who of course is a former Republican member of Congress, has said, I was a prosecutor and this prosecuting on this thing is so rare. You have Republicans on the other side saying, this is crazy that this is being prosecuted. So if you can pull in all those threads and help people understand, I think the problem with both siderism is if you just put it out there and you act like, hey, 2 trials.
Right.
But the opportunity is if you put the nuance and the detail on the Hunter trial and say, there's a portrait of an American family and there's a portrait of addiction to be told that's worth knowing. This is actually at a moment in time when Donald Trump is accusing President Biden of weaponizing the Justice Department. This is proof that that's actually not happening, because it would be within his rights to say to the Justice Department, stand down. He's not doing that. He's letting it go forward. And that gives us hope about the rule of law. And so if you can tell the story with nuance, I think that you can get beyond both siderism.
But can you tell the story with nuance and not make it 24 hours? Can you tell the story succinctly and just get it out of the way in one news segment, as opposed to having this, 24-hour cam on him?
Well, and look, those are really good points, but I think the other, if the remedy to both siderism is to not cover the other story as much, what about the argument, and it's an open question, right, that what we're doing as journalists, especially right now as we're heading into election, is trying to arm people with as much information and understanding. So if we don't cover it robustly with the nuance and detail, then our viewers and anyone listening will be walking out into the world, into dinner conversations, into conversations with relatives who have different political views, and they won't really understand how to rebut the other version of what the Hunter Biden trial is. And so there is a utility to telling it and arming people with the facts. But it's really a difficult thread. It's difficult to thread that needle.
Yeah.
So that it doesn't feel like these are two apples and apples, but also giving people the information that they need. So that, look, if you're going to have an informed electorate, which it couldn't be more important for us to have an informed electorate going into this election of all elections, this is the moment, 1 week after the conviction, for people who maybe aren't paying as close attention as we all are to the news, to really bring home to them why these two things are different. And this is maybe the only moment they'll be clicking into that.
Right, where everybody's mind is still on the trials and things like that. This is the moment to get people's attention.
Right. And if we don't fill the void with the facts and the
Then
context, others will. And the context is right.
Well, thank you, Lisa. I can't wait to be tuning in to watch your own show. I feel we could fill the entire hour with just you. But in fact, we're going to post the full pieces with you on our YouTube channel, WOWPresents. And thank you, James. Thank you out there for listening. Thank you, Justin. Thank you, Blake. You're on vacation. Thank you, Tom. We miss you. Same time, same place next week. Until then, go out and do something that makes the world go, wow!
Wow.